Good morning, friends. Welcome back to Sasser House. My name is Emily Ann if you are new here. And this afternoon, we are starting on a big old food preparation, freezer meals, and food prep day of cooking, okay? So I am in the kitchen right now. It is 9:04 and I have to work today, but I have a lot of cooking that needs to get done as well. So I'm about to leave the house, but I'm gonna get my crock pot going so that will be working for me while I'm gone. I have some chicken breasts down here. You're probably hearing the water running, that I am getting out of the freezer. Now I know that this is controversial for some people, but I put my chicken in the crock pot frozen, especially if I'm just making shredded chicken. Anything that's just shredded chicken, looky there at her. Yucky. Okay, hold on. Anything that is just shredded chicken, I do from frozen. I like to buy in bulk at the grocery store and then put stuff in the freezer so that we've got plenty of food on hand and I don't have to go to the grocery store that often. And so I am getting this chicken going, and this is such an easy way to cook chicken if you're just doing it for shredded chicken. So we're gonna use this chicken for some chicken taquitos that we're gonna make, and then we're also gonna use some of this shredded chicken for chicken pot pie, I think. Or I'm making a chicken pot pie and I'm making a sun-dried tomato chicken pasta. And for that, I'm gonna buy some chicken tenders. So maybe I'll just cube up the chicken tenders and do cubed chicken in the chicken pot pie. That'll probably be yummier than a shredded chicken. So we'll probably just use the shredded chicken to make some taquitos. But if you are used to buying rotisserie chickens, they are delicious, but they can get kind of expensive. You can do this in a jiffy. You just throw your chicken in the crock pot. I like to do sometimes I just do water. I just do a little bit of water and some seasonings. Sometimes I do chicken broth. Sometimes I'll do water and a chicken bouillon cube. But it is so easy, and you can do all kinds of things with this. You can season it with ranch seasoning and make ranch flavored pulled chicken. You can do a jar of salsa and taco and have like taco chicken. I'm just gonna do normal chicken and then we'll add to it from there with what we're gonna make. So we have 2 chicken breasts in our crock pot. I'm just gonna add a little bit of water. Not much, but just a little. Now I'm also gonna add in 1 chicken bouillon cube. We're just gonna put the lid on that, and I've got it on high. I'm gonna do it for, let's do it for, I've never done 2 at one time. I usually just do 1. We're gonna do 5.5 hours on high. Okay, so we have a very busy day today, a busy week. Honestly, we're about to embark on a busy 7 weeks. I am about to go on the road with Blake Shelton. For those of you who don't know, I'm a country music singer, and this is a huge answered prayer. I have wanted to go out and support somebody on tour, and I've been working towards that for a long, long time. And so I'm so excited to finally have that opportunity. And so I leave in 8 days. That's crazy. And the tour will start. It is 6 weeks long, and that is why I'm wanting to do some food prep. Now, Chris is very capable of cooking. Well, he is very capable of putting stuff in the oven or in the microwave. He can make eggs and sausage, and I have taught him how to make a chicken casserole. So, but other than that, he is not the cook. And if I don't have food prepared, then he'll either eat out or he'll eat chips and queso as supper for 6 weeks. And that makes me want to crumble. Okay, so we are going to do a big old food prep day for him, but also our sweet friends from our church are about to have their first baby in 1 week. She's being induced in 1 week, and I want to stock her freezer with some convenience meals that she can just pop in the oven or pop in the microwave, some ready-made suppers, so that they don't have to worry about cooking for a while. And I'm sure our Sunday school class will do like a meal train. People will probably be bringing them meals, but it'll be good for her to have that in the freezer. It'll last them a little bit longer, and they can pull from them if they run out of the meal train meals. So that is what we are cooking for today. Now, I need to pick up some stuff at the grocery store. Right now, I'm headed to run a couple errands. I have an appointment at 10:30. It's 9:14. I have an appointment at 10:30 for my job, and then I have interviews today from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. So that is the stuff that is on the schedule that has to happen. We are going to be squeezing all this cooking in after and in between those things. So we've got our chicken already going in the crock pot. We're going to use that for our chicken taquitos. Now, I am so excited to share this simple freezer meal with y'all. Chris and I love these taquitos, and I love them because they are so convenient. You cook them, you put them in the freezer, and then when you're ready to eat, it is so easy to just grab those and go. So you can either just eat them as little taquitos, or you can put them frozen in a baking dish, and you can cover them with enchilada sauce and cheese, and then you've got enchiladas like in a jiffy. And all you had to do was put this stuff right in to the pan and in the oven, and you're done because you did the work beforehand. So I want to make some of those for them, and I want to make some of those for Chris as well, because he will eat those like crazy. He loves Mexican food. And then I'm going to do some breakfast meals for Lane and Maria, our friends. Then for lunches and dinners, I'm going to do little pizza pockets, like honestly kind of like homemade Hot Pockets. So it's not the healthiest thing in the world, but it feels so much better because you know exactly what is in it. So I'm going to do some pizza pockets for them and for Chris, because he'll eat those like crazy. The chicken taquitos. We're going to do chicken pot pie. We're going to do a sun-dried tomato chicken pasta bake, and we're going to do chili. I absolutely love making chili. It makes so much food. It goes such a long way, and then you can freeze it and pull it out whenever you need a quick meal. I think that that'll be good, and that will feed them for a little while and hopefully be a blessing to them. And then for Chris, I'll probably just try to double batch a bunch of this stuff so that I've got some stuff going for him as well. Okay, hello. My interview is in 9 minutes, but real quick, I am getting our bread dough stirred up. This is the easiest, let me feel this temp. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Let me measure it. This is the easiest bread to make in the whole wide world. I shared it on, it's not quite hot enough. I shared it on, or in one of my videos that I did where it's called like bread bacon or something. It's on here on the channel. I'll link it. But I showed you 2 of my go-to bread recipes, and this one is just slowly becoming my all-time favorite. 1, because it is so convenient. There we go. We got it up to 100. And 2, because I really love the flavor. So we have 1.5 cups of warm water. You want it to be somewhere between 100 to 115. I'm going to add in about a tablespoon of honey. The recipe that I'm using, one second, it doesn't usually call for the sugar, but I think that I like it with a little bit of sweetness. So I'm just going to stir that honey in with my warm water. And then we are going to add in 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. If you're using instant yeast, you don't have to proof it. You can just throw it in there with everything else, so that's even quicker. But I buy my active dry yeast in, I think it's either a 2-pound or a 5-pound block. I think it's a 2-pound block. 5 pounds sounds like a lot. And then I keep it in my fridge in a mason jar. And a 2-pound block lasts me over a year, and I make all my bread from scratch. I don't buy any of it at the grocery store anymore. So I have my yeast in my bowl, and I'm just gonna hydrate it in with the water. I'm gonna leave this spoon out because we're gonna use it to stir up our flour. And then after that, after this yeast proofs, we're just gonna add in 3 cups of flour and 2 teaspoons of salt. And then we just leave it to sit on the counter. This is a great bread recipe if you need to make bread ahead of time and have bread quick, because you can mix up this dough. It's no need, you literally just mix it up with a spoon, either let it sit on the counter for like 2 to 3 hours, or you can put it in your fridge for up to 3 days and then pull it out whenever you want to make it. So if I had thought things through, I would have done this last night because it takes like 10 minutes, but I didn't think it through. So we're doing it now. I should technically let this go a little bit longer, but it's starting to get foamy and my interview is in 2 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and add our flour in. This could not get any simpler. I don't even perfectly measure out all my flour. Just get it in there and literally with a spoon, stir it up. What you're looking for is like a shaggy dough. So you don't want something that is like liquidy, like cake batter, but you also don't want a dough that really holds its shape. Like you want it to kind of jiggle if you shake it in the bowl. And so what I always do is I stir this up real good and I see where I'm at. And if the dough, it should be super sticky and really shaggy. And this seems like it is holding its shape a little too well for me. So I'm going to add just a little bit of water. And then I just mix this up and let that dough hydrate. I'm gonna cover this with, you can do plastic wrap or a tea towel. And we are gonna let this sit on the counter. And that is literally all you do. It cannot be any easier. See this dough, super sticky, kind of shaggy. That's what you're looking for. Okay, now I have to go work my real job and do a couple of interviews and then we'll be back. All right, so it has turned into a gully washer of a storm outside and it's been that way for the past couple hours. Here is our bread. This is actually the second batch that I have made today. And as you can see, it's real jiggly and it's risen a ton since we started up. It's got bubbles all in it and that's exactly what we're looking for. So to bake this bread, you preheat your oven to 450. You put a Dutch oven, like a big old Dutch oven, in the oven to heat up with the lid on. And then we're gonna put it in there and that's how we cook this bread and that's what gives it a really nice puff and rise. So I'll show you how we do that, but right now we are going to shred up some of our chicken to make a batch of these taquitos. So we have had a change of plans. We were supposed to have company in this weekend, and that's why I was thinking I needed to get all of this done today. But now our company got sick, so they are not gonna come in anymore. So that gives me a couple more days to get this cooking done. So we're not gonna get all of it done tonight because I didn't have time to go to Aldi to get our groceries. And so I'm gonna have to do that later on this week. But I've already got this chicken cooked, so I'm gonna go ahead and make up these taquitos while we are in the kitchen doing it. I realized that we probably didn't need 2 chicken breasts worth of taquitos of the same like style, because we already have some of these made up with some pulled turkey meat that Chris and I have been eating on in our freezer. And so I don't want to overload Chris with a bunch of the same flavored taquitos while I'm gone because he'll get sick of them. So for Lane and Maria, our friends, I'm gonna do just our normal recipe with our chicken, our corn. I'm gonna do some salsa verde, some cream cheese, and shredded cheese, and get all of that mixed up for their taquitos. And then for Chris's, I'm gonna do a buffalo chicken taquito that I think will be delicious and a nice change of pace for him while he's home. So I've got one of our chicken breasts shredded up right here, and as you can see, it just shreds up like a dream. It literally just falls apart. It is so easy, and when you realize that you can do it this easy and with really no effort because the crock pot slow cooks it for you. It's so much better than doing the rotisserie chickens. All right, so I've got that nice and shredded up. And now to that, I'm going to open a can of corn. Okay, so we'll get this up out of here. We need a new can opener desperately. And I'm gonna pour in this corn. I reckon I'll just do all of it. All right, from there, I would love to add like some green chilies to this, but I don't have any green chilies, but I do have some salsa verde. So I'm gonna pour some salsa verde in there, and now I'm gonna heat up some of this cream cheese in the microwave just to take the edge off of it. So I'm just gonna do half of this, like that. And we'll just nuke that for a second so it'll be easier to spread and handle. So our cream cheese is nice and soft now. Just gonna get that into our bowl. There we go. Now we're just gonna stir this up. And remember, the only kind of seasoning that we put in to our chicken was that bouillon cube. So this chicken really isn't seasoned at all. So we're gonna get some flavor from our salsa verde, but I also want to salt and pepper this. I wanna do some onion powder, and I'm tempted to do some taco seasoning mix, but I don't know if it'll need that flavor. So since nothing in this is raw, as weird as it seems to taste test this, I definitely wanna taste test this mixture and make sure that it tastes good before we stuff it in a bunch of tortilla shells and send it off. So we're just gonna do some salt and pepper and some onion powder. Like I said, usually I would put a can of diced green chilies in here. You could even get a can of diced jalapenos. That would be really yummy too. But I don't have that, and I don't know how spicy they would want it to be. All right, let's just grab a little bite of this. That's really good. Here, I'll put that away into the sink. It has really good flavor. It's very mild. It's not too spicy at all. I almost wonder if it needs to be a little bit spicier. This salsa verde is mild. I'm gonna add just a little bit more of that in. We actually have some hot habanero salsa in our fridge. I'm gonna grab that real quick. Now I don't think we need much of this at all, but I'm gonna do just a little bit to add somewhat of a kick to this mixture. And I've got a new fork. Let's see if that made any difference. Yes, that is so good. That gives it just a little bit of heat, but not too much. All right, so now I'm gonna add in some cheddar cheese. Probably about a half a cup. And get that good and stirred in, and then this will be ready to go into our tortilla shells. Now, I love making homemade tortillas, but when you're doing a big old cooking project like this, that could get very overwhelming very quick. Plus, I have not mastered the art of making my tortillas all the same size and shape and appearance. So I still need to work on that. So I'm putting just a little bit of this mixture in. I'm kind of pulling it tight. And then I literally just roll these up like a little rolled taco. We had one little casualty right there. And then I put them on a baking sheet. So what we're going to do is we're gonna flash freeze these in our freezer, which basically means that we're just gonna freeze them all flat on this baking sheet until they're completely frozen solid. Then from there, we'll throw them in a good freezer baggie. You can double bag it if you want to. I have had no issue with just one freezer bag. And we are going to leave them in our freezer, and it's just like having homemade taquitos, like what you would buy in the freezer section, but so much better because you know exactly what is in it, and it doesn't have all the crazy preservatives that the ones from the freezer section have. I have a hard time with keeping from overfilling these. The great thing about making these is the possibilities are really endless, and if you're going to be in the kitchen cooking anyways, really the only time that we spent on this so far was mixing up all the ingredients in this bowl. But it didn't really take us much time to put the chicken in the crock pot, and then we're gonna assemble them, but then after that, we're done. And you can bake these if you want to, and then freeze them. I have baked them before and made too many and then frozen them. Or if you don't need to bake them beforehand, you can just freeze them just like this and then bake them in the oven right out of the freezer. Another really yummy way to eat these is to take them out of the freezer, put them in like a casserole dish, and then top them with your favorite enchilada sauce and some cheese, and then bake them in the oven, and you've got enchiladas in no time at all. And as you can see, we just have one chicken breast that we've used, 1 can of corn, about a 1/4 of a cup, let's see, no, just not a 1/4 cup, 2 ounces of cream cheese, and probably a 1/4 cup salsa verde, and some seasonings, and then a 1/2 cup of shredded cheese. And see, we've already made 6. I think we'll probably get at least 9, if not 10 taquitos out of this one chicken breast. All right, so in total we have 3, 6, 9, 10. 10 taquitos out of our first batch. So I'm going to get these into the freezer, and then we're gonna get our bread in the oven. All right, so I've had my Dutch oven preheating. Oh, and getting really hot in our oven. Let's see if it'll smoke the way we want it to. Not really, but it's been in there a long time. A very, very long time. So this is what I cooked the first batch in, this parchment paper, and so I just left it in there so that we could reuse it for our next batch. So we're gonna get our dough turned out and shaped into a ball now. The kitchen is being heavily used at the moment, which is fine. But I'm gonna clear our workspace just slightly. This can go back into the fridge. I'll leave this out for the next batch we do. And that needs to stay out. We've got our other chicken breast in there that we will make our buffalo chicken taquitos in. But for now, we need to get this dough out onto our counter. So I'm gonna sprinkle some flour on the top of our dough. I'm also gonna sprinkle some flour on our workspace. Now, since I have this, actually that has cream cheese on it, so we're gonna get a fresh one. I'm gonna go in here and just pull this dough off the sides of our bowl. This dough is very sticky. We're gonna dump it out onto our counter. If it'll come out. There we go. And sprinkle just a little bit more flour so that we can work with it. Try to get all sides in the flour. There we go. All right, so what you want to do here is nothing fancy, but you just want to pull in all the sides of your dough into the center. Just tuck them in as best as you can. Like I said, it is very sticky. And you're just gonna pick it up and put it right on your parchment paper. Just like that. If there's some leftover flour on there, that's totally fine. I'm gonna rinse my hands off real quick. Now we just drop our dough into our Dutch oven, and we're gonna put that back into our 450-degree oven and let it cook for 30 minutes. All right, so just using this same bowl that we used before, I'm going to get our other chicken breast out. So I'm gonna get this shredded. Now I have never made these buffalo chicken taquitos, but Chris loves buffalo chicken dip. So I don't see why he wouldn't love these. That's good and mixed up for now. I'm gonna take the other 2 ounces that we have left of this cream cheese and get it into our bowl and get this into the microwave. Now we'll just get this cream cheese in. And we've got some buffalo sauce. Now we are not picky when it comes to buffalo sauce. I'm gonna make sure this is still good, and it is. We use the red hot buffalo sauce. This is the Moore's original buffalo sauce. I'm gonna start by adding in probably just under 1/4 cup of buffalo sauce and mix that up with our cream cheese and see where that gets us. Now when I make buffalo chicken dip, I always put ranch in it as well. I don't really want to put ranch in this, so I think I'm going to use a ranch seasoning packet, a little bit more. I'd say that's probably in total 1/4 cup. I'm going to also go ahead and add in our cheese. You could use mozzarella cheese, you could use cheddar. I really love the mix of the flavors of cheddar and buffalo. Like when I make buffalo chicken dip, I do a mix of mozzarella and cheddar. We do have some mozzarella in the fridge, but it is not shredded, and I need to use up this cheddar anyway, so I'm just gonna do that. And then we'll go grab our ranch seasoning packet as well. All right, so we don't need a ton of this. Just a little bit will do. That was probably about a teaspoon. Stir this up, and once again, I'll get a clean fork and give this a taste test before we stuff it in our tortillas and call it good. That is very good. That is yummy. Okay. Just because we have it, I'm going to add a little bit more cheese for good measure. I can already tell that this did not make as much mixture as the others, but the others had a whole can of corn, so it's going to make it go farther. So think about that when you're making these. If you are making enough to feed a crowd, then it might make sense to add more to them. So, you know, add stuff that'll bulk it up, like beans, corn, any type of veggies that you can add in that sound good. That'll help add more bulk to it. I'm gonna go ahead and just use this same tray, and we'll get these made up. And that gives us 1 batch for Lane and Maria and 1 batch for Chris. Chris could probably eat 3 of these in a meal. I could probably eat 3 of them too if I was hungry, but I'd say a serving size, especially if you do these as enchiladas with like sauce on top, is probably 2. So if you think about it that way, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meals. And we'll see how many meals if we're counting. I mean, even if you eat 3 of them, that's still going to be 3 meals. All right, so in total for our buffalo, we got 2, 4, 6. All right, now we're going to get those into the freezer so that they can flash freeze up. Okay, I just want to show you how much this bread rises and how beautiful it is. I've got some baked potatoes in here now too for mine and Chris's supper tonight. Move those towards the center. So you bake this in a 450-degree oven. So pretty. It's like it shocks me every time how beautiful it is. It puffs up and rises into this beautiful dome. You bake it at 450 for 30 minutes covered. Then you take the lid off and you bake it for 12 minutes uncovered to get it a nice golden crispy crust. Hello, we are back in the kitchen and I am doing double the cooking since I'm going to be in the kitchen anyways. I'm not making my marathon of meal prep tonight. It's actually Valentine's Day and Chris and I are about to cook supper for Valentine's. But I have these pizza doughs that I got out of the freezer, and I always make my pizza dough and then I just freeze it and then I pull it out when we need it. I let it thaw in the refrigerator. But I have had these in the fridge for 2 days now and they need to be used. So I'm just going to do this real quick while we are getting ready for dinner. Now, like I said, we don't buy freezer meals at the grocery store just because it always feels like you don't know what you're eating, and I don't know, it just seems not like the healthiest option to me. I ain't judging anybody who does do freezer meals, but that's just what we try to avoid in our house. So, any chance that I can make something that's like a freezer meal copycat, that's what I like to do, so that we still have the convenience of a ready-made freezer meal, but we know what's in it and we don't feel as guilty about eating it. So right here I have my pizza dough and I just pulled it out to, I don't know what that is, maybe a 1/4 inch thick. I like to leave it just a little bit thick, and then I spoon in the center just some regular marinara sauce, and then you can put whatever toppings you would like to in the middle. Basically, we're making a homemade Hot Pocket. So I have made these before where you add veggies. You could do taco meat. I've done ham and cheese, like a ham and cheese Hot Pocket. Basically, anything that you've ever had in a Hot Pocket, you can do in your own little homemade pizza pocket. So after you get whatever toppings you want in your pizza pocket, I don't have a fancy or pretty way of doing this. I just pull the ends in towards the center, like that. And then I just pull the edges around. And I like to leave those edges clear of any pasta sauce. That way they'll stick when you fold them in. If you get those edges wet with pasta sauce, then they're not going to stick together. Oh, my noodles over here are going crazy. Let me stir those down. All right. So then we just pull these little edges in and we press them so that nothing spills out. And I'll kind of pinch all of it so that there's not a big old glob of dough. And we've got a little pizza pocket. So then I carefully pick it up, just like this, and put it on my baking sheet. I'm gonna wipe up the counters. Now this is optional. I don't always take the time to do this, if I'm honest with you. But I'm gonna beat 1 egg, and then we're just gonna brush this beaten egg right over the top of these. And that is gonna give us a nice golden, beautiful crust, just like what you would do with like a pie dough or anything like that. I'm just gonna do a light little brush of this egg wash. And this pizza dough, I'll put the recipe down below. It is so easy. And Chris and I have been having homemade pizzas for about a year now, since I started making this, because it was just so simple. The recipe makes 6 individual pizza doughs. And so we do calzones sometimes with them, and they freeze great. Usually when I make them, I'll make the dough and then we'll have 2 that night, but then we have 4 to go in the freezer, which is quite a bit to have ready to go in the freezer. And then I will just pull them out in the morning if we're eating them that night. And they thaw real quickly. They're so easy to handle once you get them out. I'm gonna top these with just a little bit of cheese because I've got it. And that'll make them look pretty. But whatever your family likes to eat, like I said, you can turn these into absolutely anything. And then just for ventilation, I'm gonna go through and cut a slit right in the top of our dough. I've got to get sharper knives or get Chris to sharpen my knives at some point. They are not as sharp as I would like for them to be. So just gently put a little slit in the tops of your little pizza pockets for ventilation, and those are ready to go into the oven. So I've got those in a 450-degree oven. We'll check them at about 12 minutes and just see if they're good and golden on the top. And I guess that you could make these and then freeze them raw and then bake them. I've never tried that. I don't see why you couldn't do that, but I don't know how well they would cook from frozen. So I know that these will freeze great even after they've been cooked. We'll just let them cool, wrap them in saran wrap and some foil. I'll put them in a freezer bag and label them, and he can just pull them out, unwrap them. He can even pop them in the microwave to heat them up, put them in the air fryer, or pop them back in the oven to get them good and warm and crispy again. Now that is what I call a pizza pocket. Have you ever seen anything so beautiful in your entire life? That is beautiful. That puts a hot pocket to shame, baby. Okay? This will go, it's cooled. So now it's gonna get wrapped in saran wrap, then aluminum foil, then in a freezer bag in the freezer. And Chris will just pop it in the oven, reheat it up, and he'll have a perfect little supper or lunch. All right, friends, we are back in the kitchen, and this is where the rubber meets the road, okay? It is Friday, and I have got to get this cooking done for our friends, and I can cook more for Chris throughout the next little bit. But I'm gonna try to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and get a bunch done tonight. So, the kitchen's a little bit of a mess. I've got to get that cleaned up, but first things first, I'm gonna get some sausage browning up on the stove, as well as some ground beef for our chili. I'm gonna get that working for me so that then I can do the dishes and have 2 things going at one time. All right, so down here we're gonna get some ground beef going in our big old chili pot. This is 2 pounds of ground beef, so this will be a big old pot of chili, but that'll be good because chili freezes wonderfully, and I can have some for Chris, and then I can have some for our friends as well. And then back here we are going to get 1 pound of sausage going. All right, now I know we want an onion for our chili, so I'm going to go ahead and dice up 1 onion and get that in with the ground beef so that that can be sauteing with our beef. One thing that I love about making chili is how customizable it is. I have a recipe that I love to follow, but I don't always have all of those ingredients on hand. And tonight I didn't have all of those ingredients on hand. And so I was able to improvise with what I had, and we were still able to make a delicious pot of chili. I'm also storing all of my food scraps in bags so that I can add those to our composter for our garden this year. I have never composted before, so I am new to all of that, but I'm trying to save all of the skins of my onions, all of the scraps of any vegetables that we use or eat, and then add them to my compost. So over on the stove right now, I have our ground beef and our onion in our chili pot, and then I have some breakfast sausage browning up on the other eye for our breakfast casserole that we're making. I really, really love this breakfast casserole, and I love being able to do multiple things in the kitchen at once just to feel like I'm maximizing my time. So I have one of our rustic loaves of bread right here, and it has been sitting out for 2 days. So it has gotten good and stale, which is exactly what we want for this casserole. If you used fresh bread, it would just turn into a mushy mess. And so you want to use day-old bread or 2-day-old bread. Just any type of stale bread will work. And this rustic loaf is already so good and crusty to begin with, so it makes a really great base for this casserole. So I'm just getting this cubed up into little pieces, and after we get it all cut up into little pieces, we'll add it into our casserole dish. This is such an easy breakfast to throw together. It would also be really good to make for breakfast for dinner. I don't know if y'all like breakfast for dinners, but Chris and I love a breakfast for dinner. So I'm just going to keep cutting up this loaf of bread until we get this pan filled up with little cubes of our crusty bread. So I ended up not being able to use the entire loaf of bread for this casserole, but if you were using a 9x13 pan, I think that one loaf would be the perfect size. But I think the pan that I was using for Lane and Maria was just a 9x9. So I decided to use the rest of that loaf that we had and make a little impromptu breakfast casserole for Chris and I. Since I was already doing it, I thought that I would just meal prep something for us as well. So I'm just cutting up the rest of that and putting this in one of our casserole dishes so that we can have a breakfast casserole as well. Once we had all of our bread cubed up, it was time to top it with our browned breakfast sausage. So this couldn't get any more simple. You just top that bread with the crumbled up sausage. And then what I like to do to make sure that everything is very evenly distributed is I just take a little fork and I just kind of wiggle that bread around and the sausage around to make sure the sausage gets in between some of the pieces of bread. Now back to our chili. I'm draining 2 cans of beans. I had black beans and kidney beans on hand. So we're going to drain and rinse those and get those added into our chili. I'll put my full recipe for my go-to chili down below. Like I said, this one that I'm making this evening doesn't have all the things that I normally do just because I'm using what's on hand. I just added in some tomato sauce as well as a can of diced tomatoes. But that's what makes cooking so fun. It's not like baking in the way that you have to really be by the book and stick to what the recipe says. Cooking, you can kind of add and omit whatever you'd like, depending on your taste. So right here, I'm adding some water in, which may sound weird to some of y'all, but we're adding 2 beef bouillon cubes as well. I didn't have any beef broth, so that is what we are doing to improvise. I do that with chicken broth and beef broth quite often. I'll just use water and like a beef bouillon cube or a chicken bouillon cube. So those are really nice to have on hand. Now we're just seasoning this up. And I think that this seasoning blend is delicious. You can try it out for yourself, but you can also buy those chili seasoning mixes at the grocery store as well, which make things really easy. Now it's time to get back to our breakfast casserole. And I'm so thankful Chris got home from work and he unloaded and reloaded the dishwasher. So that freed me up to just work on keeping the cooking going. So we've got our chili simmering on the stove, and now we need to make basically our custard that is going to go over our breakfast casserole. This is kind of like a savory bread pudding. It's like a mixture of milk and eggs and spices that we are going to pour over that rustic bread. And I'm just grating up 1 block of cheese. And we're going to mix that in with our custard so it'll be nice and yummy and cheesy as well when it bakes up. I'm just going to go ahead and get that right into... Oh, I shouldn't have done that because I have to use that to whisk our eggs. That's okay. We'll dump it back out. it's gonna go in there eventually anyways. So I'm gonna leave this grater out because I'm sure we'll be grating up more cheese tonight. Let's get this back on our cutting board and we'll add that in at the end. So we're gonna get 6 eggs into our mixing bowl. I recently made a breakfast casserole like this, and you've probably seen it if you have seen our snowed in cooking video. I made it for the first time when we were snowed in. We had about a half a loaf of that rustic bread left, and I wanted to use it up, and we had some sausage, cheese, and eggs, and I thought, well, this will be perfect. And since making it, I've been reading some recipes that use rustic bread like this, and a lot of these are called overnight breakfast casseroles. And they tell you to let the bread soak up the liquid custard mixture for overnight. And I'm sure that that works great, and we'll have to try that, but we absolutely loved how this turned out when we made it during that snow week. And so I don't really see a need in altering what we did since I've already made it that way and I know I love it. I figured I would just stick to what I know for these recipes, but I'll definitely want to experiment down the line. Now to this, I'm going to add 3 cups of milk. Now to this, I'm gonna add about half of our cheese because I think it would be good to put some cheese on the top. And now we just need to season everything up. So we need half a teaspoon of salt. We need 1.5 teaspoons of onion powder. We need 1 teaspoon of dry mustard. And in the past, when I haven't had dry mustard, I did a heaping because this is just a half. When I haven't had dry mustard, I will just do a little bit of Dijon mustard in there and stir it up, and it turns out great. And then we need a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, and I gotta add some pepper. Just because I think that it gives a nice flavor, I'm gonna add just a couple dashes of hot sauce. So now we will just pour this mixture over our bread and milk, or sausage, I'm crazy, over our bread and sausage. It looks like all the cheese sunk to the bottom. So, lesson learned there. I would just say to top with the cheese. I guess that's what I did last time. Maybe I just forgot. The thing is, so many times when I'm in the kitchen, we're eating this one. So, I'll just do this real quick. So many times when I'm in the kitchen, I am just doing stuff on the fly and making up stuff as I go most of the time. And so then, when I go to make it again, I can't remember what I did or what I didn't do. All right, let's get a spoon and top theirs with some cheese. And I think since I've tried to make 2 of them, I might need to do a couple more eggs, maybe like 2 eggs and some milk for mine and Chris's. But I'm gonna just press this down in here. Yeah, that definitely needs more liquid. One thing that I have learned when you're cooking and you're not following a recipe is that you have to be ready to improvise. If something needs a little bit more seasoning, if something needs a little bit more of a liquid mixture in comparison to your dry mixtures, that is what we're doing right here. I just ended up cracking 2 eggs and doing a little bit more milk, probably like a 1/4 cup of milk. And I seasoned that up, and we're going to get this poured over mine and Chris's casserole. I also learned that you definitely don't want to put the cheese in the liquid mixture. You want to add that in with your dry ingredients. So I thought about it. Since I am making this one for me and Chris to eat this weekend, I'm going to cover this and I'm going to put it in the fridge overnight. We'll see how that goes. I'll bake it in the morning. For Lane and Maria's, I'm gonna go ahead and let it sit while we preheat the oven and get this one baked so that it'll be fully cooked and ready to go. And they can pull it out of the freezer, just reheat it, cut it up, and eat it. All right, so our chili is cooling down and our breakfast casserole is in the oven. So I'm filling up a pot of water to boil our penne pasta noodles to make our chicken, sun-dried tomato, mozzarella pasta bake. All right, so we have some sun-dried tomatoes right here. And we need 2 tablespoons of the oil that is in these sun-dried tomatoes. And this is, I think, 8 ounces. We need half of this jar for our recipe. On medium heat. And get our sun-dried tomatoes into our pan. All right, so we've got those in there. Now we need to add in our garlic. Use these little tongs because that's what I'll be using for the chicken. So we just want this to saute together in the pan for just a couple minutes. Garlic is nice and fragrant. And so we're going to remove our sun-dried tomatoes. I don't know why this recipe calls for you to do this, but I'm following the recipe. We're going to turn down our heat. We're going to get our chicken in here. And we have chicken tenders that we're using. I'm just going to go ahead and put those in there. We need 1 pound of chicken tenders. All right, there we go. Just went and washed my hands real good, and I'm going to go in and season these with some salt and pepper. I'm just going to let those brown up. All right, we're going to get these flipped over. All right, so while our chicken is going, we need to dice up our sun-dried tomatoes. Get those into small pieces. So those are diced up and ready to go. All right, let's check our chicken and see if it's come up to temp. Looks like it has not. So we're gonna keep on letting that cook. That one has. That one has. So a couple of them have. I want to get those out of the pan and put them on our tray with our sun-dried tomatoes. Alright, our noodles are just about done. I'm not going to let those boil all the way because we're freezing it. And I don't want them to be too soft when they end up cooking them. But I'm going to go ahead and get our sun-dried tomatoes back into our skillet. And then I think I'm going to cut up these chicken tenders because I think that they will be easier to eat. The recipe just calls to leave them as chicken tenders, but I think they're going to be more enjoyable to eat if it's bite-sized chunks of chicken. I know that I would enjoy it better than eating pasta with a big old slab of chicken in it. So I'm just going to dice this up and we're going to add it back into the pan. But I do think that those noodles are done. I'm going to reserve some of this pasta water. And I'm going to take these noodles over to drain. It's so hard for me to not want to eat this for supper tonight. It smells so good. Oh, I lost a piece. That's okay. We've got more to work with. Our oven just went off with our casserole. And I'm going to remove this aluminum foil. Oh, that baked up so good. And we're gonna let this go for another 10 to 12 minutes. And that means that we've gotten all of this done in 25 minutes, which is really great. So to finish this out, I don't have any heat on right now. I'll turn the heat back on in a minute. We are going to do a cup of whole milk. I'm gonna turn that on to a medium heat. So to this, we are going to add 1 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese. And we're gonna bring this up to just a gentle little boil. And that milk and cheese is going to melt together to give us a yummy, luxurious cheese sauce for our pasta. I've had our chili cooling off. It is still pretty hot. I've got a clean spoon right here. I'm gonna give it a taste test just to check for seasoning. Make sure it's not missing anything. I didn't follow my recipe exactly because I didn't have my ranch style beans, and we used 2 pounds of ground beef instead of just 1. So I just wanna make sure that all of our flavors are correct. Well, it sizzled my tongue off a little, but I think it's delish. So we've been stirring this up. I think most of our cheese, if not all of our cheese, is good and melted into our sauce. Now I'm going to add in our noodles and hope that we have got enough space, and I think we do. I don't know if you can see over here beside me, but our breakfast casserole, I couldn't remember the name of it for a minute, is out of the oven, and it looks absolutely delicious. I am making a big old mess, sloshing this all over the place. I feel like this should be a thicker, creamier sauce, and it's not. And I added all that cheese in there, but I'm afraid the cheese is like sticking to the chicken. And this has happened to me before when making stuff like this. Sometimes the cheese, it's like it doesn't melt into the milk. And I don't know why that happens. But this is definitely not what the picture looks like. It is too watery. So I think I'm going to grate up some, I'm going to turn this heat down to low because I don't want to cook this anymore. Actually, I'm just going to turn the heat off. I don't want to cook this any more than I have. See, I think that's exactly what's happened. All of this chicken right here is like connected by a bunch of cheese. So I'm going to grate up some Parmesan cheese because I know that that melts good into liquid like this. We're going to let this sit a second and pray that it all comes together in the end. But cooking can get so frustrating when you follow a recipe. And this recipe had come really highly recommended, had great reviews, and it doesn't work out. But I'm leaving this in here because we have used a lot of ingredients in this, spent a lot of time on it, and so we're not going to say that it is a wash just yet. I'm going to add just a little bit of Parmesan cheese in and see if that helps thicken it up a little bit. All right, we're going to go ahead and season it. It calls for 1 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. And then I think it calls for a tablespoon of basil. So we're going to get that in there. And then it calls for salt to taste. So we're just going to get all of these ingredients mixed in. I do think that it's finally thickening up just a little bit. We have gotten this in a much better place. But if I ever were to make this again, I'm going to taste it and see if we like it. If I ever were to make this again, I would make the sauce separate, even though it would dirty up another pan. Because it's really hard to get all of that cheese and everything stirred in here. And if we were eating it tonight, that would be one thing. But I feel like these noodles have been cooking in this sauce, and I really wanted the noodles to be kind of par bold. And I feel like they've just continued to kind of simmer in our sauce. But it'll be okay. So I basically added some Parmesan cheese and some heavy cream to help thicken it up. And I think we are in a much better place. So I'm gonna get me a piece of chicken and some noodles. I know this is very hot. Try not to burn my mouth. Still kind of drippy. See how you see? But I think that it will thicken when it, especially when it bakes in the oven and reheats again. Okay, well, the flavor is 10 out of 10, but what is not to love? Wow. Yeah, the flavor is delicious. I do wish that sauce was a little bit thicker. I really do think that it will thicken up when it bakes in the oven. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this off the heat, and we will get this into pans to freeze. So for our friend's pasta, I put it in a disposable container. That way they could cook it and then just throw it away and have no dishes. And I wrapped that up really good in aluminum foil. And for Chris's, I put that in just a personal little size container that'll go in our freezer. For the chili, I went to Dollar Tree and I got some of these containers to put the chili in. But I was watching Becky from Acre Homestead here on YouTube. I absolutely love her channel. And she was making freezer chili for her sister who was about to have a baby. And I thought this was so genius. She went ahead and browned up her ground beef, sauteed her onions, her garlic, all that stuff. But she just put it in a Ziploc baggie with the beans and with all the other ingredients, everything except the water or beef broth. And she froze it that way and gave instructions like just add 4 cups of beef broth. And then that way it froze very easily in a Ziploc bag. Okay, Chris and I just had supper. I've got the dishwasher going and I am wiping down our counters, even though I know they'll be a mess again. It makes me feel better to get them clean, even if just for a second. So we're going to make some banana bread. Get us 2 bowls out. Into this bowl, we need to soften 2 sticks of butter. I'll link this recipe down below, but for starters, you need to start with 1 cup of butter, softened, and I don't have any softened, so we're gonna nuke this for just about 15 seconds, and that should do the trick. All right, so while that is going, I have some very ripe bananas, just how you want them for banana bread. There goes our little microwave singing to us. And I'm gonna get these 4 bananas into our bowl so we can mash those up. Chris, can you get our compost bag out of the fridge? I'm about to make Chris put his apron on. Let's see, I think there's a little bit of, yep. That one's about ready to be dumped out. This is exactly how you want your bananas to look when making banana bread. You can make banana bread when they don't look like this, but this is the perfect ripeness for banana bread. They're so soft. All right, so we've got 4 bananas in our bowl. We've got our softened butter. That's perfect and soft, but not melted. But before we do anything with our butter, Chris, can you mash our bananas? I didn't know I was actually going to put him to work. We need to measure out, oh, we've got everything going off in here right now. We've got the oven preheated to 350, and we need to measure out 1 cup of sugar. Or 2 cups of sugar, sorry, I lied to you. And this recipe makes 2 loaves of banana bread. So I'm gonna do 1 loaf for our friends, and the other batch I will do as muffins for Chris to have and pull from for either snacks or breakfast or anything like that while I'm gone. So I'm measuring in 1/3 of the cups. So we need 6 of these total. Oh, wow, that looks pretty good. Maybe just a little bit more mashed. After I got the sugar added in with our softened butter, I just used my electric mixer and I gave that a really good mix to make sure that got good and creamed together. You want to make sure that it is nice and smooth and creamy. All right, so we've got our butter and our sugar all whipped up. We're going to add our eggs in one at a time. Get those incorporated before we add another one in. There we go. And then our last egg. Now to this, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. This is 1/2 of a teaspoon. So we'll do 4 of these. Perfect. And now we're going to add in our mashed bananas that Chris mashed so well for us. Get all that out. So while we're getting our mashed bananas all incorporated, I have to tell you, you have to try this banana bread recipe. It is absolutely the best banana bread I have ever had in my entire life. And out of everything that I left behind for Chris, that I meal prepped for him, those banana bread muffins were his favorite thing that he had on hand. And he could not wait for me to get home to make him more. So we need 3 cups of flour to add into this. And I have not refilled my flour yet. So that's 1. That's 1/2. So there's 1 cup. Half. 2 cups. Half. And then 3 cups. Perfect. We've got all that added in. And now for the rest of our dry ingredients, we need 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Perfect. We need 1 teaspoon of salt. And we need 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Perfect. I'm just going to kind of mix that baking soda and the cinnamon and the salt into the top of those dry ingredients since we didn't mix them separately. That way that'll help them mix all together when we combine it with the batter. And we are almost done with our banana bread. It's that easy. And for our last ingredient, believe it or not, we need 1 cup of sour cream. This is what gives it that beautiful, velvety, moist consistency that we all know and love when we eat banana bread. I think that I don't even have to measure this because I think all that I have left is probably about 1 cup, but we'll measure it just to be sure. Yeah, okay, now that I'm filling up this 1/2 cup measure, I know that I definitely only have 1 cup left. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get that in here. We're not gonna use our mixers anymore. We're gonna fold this in by hand. Just making sure we scrape down those sides and bottom of the bowl to make sure everything is good and incorporated. Look at that beautiful batter. It is so thick and pretty. I'm gonna grease up my favorite bread pan with some of my little cake goo. I use this every time I'm baking a cake, and I'm out of my non-stick spray right now, so I'm just going to use it to grease this pan. But this is a cast iron bread pan, and I absolutely love this. I just feel like bread bakes so much better in these pans. So I'm going to go ahead and fill our bread pan first, because I have a feeling Chris might want some add-ins to his muffins. He loves chocolate chips in his banana bread. Check that out and see where we're at. Use a little bit more. All right, I think that looks perfect. So that's ready to go in the oven. I've got some semi-sweet chocolate chips. I still think we're gonna have too much batter for all this, but I'll go ahead and add some of these in. Get those stirred in. My favorite banana bread, and I know it's definitely more of a treat than it is a breakfast, is a banana bread with chocolate chips and pecans. And if you toast the pecans in the oven for a little while, so good. So I'm gonna get this muffin tin filled up and we'll get these in the oven. Okay, we have quite a bit of batter left. Pat those out. And I just remembered my mother-in-law got me this mini bread pan for Christmas. So I'm gonna grease a couple of these up, and I'm just gonna try to disperse it evenly so everything bakes evenly in the pan, and make a couple mini loaves and see how they do. I've wanted to use this pan since she got it for me because it's so cute and little, and it would make the most precious little personal banana bread gift to give to somebody. All right, we'll see if that's enough. Okay. All right, I'll get that wiped up, and we'll get all of these in the oven. Okay, I've got to get this kitchen in order, but I'm gonna take a little break. It is like 8:30 or so, and I have not stopped since I woke up this morning. I had an interview this morning, and then I worked all day shipping out merch orders, and then got home and got to work in the kitchen. So I'm going to take a little break and then let this banana bread bake. But I started thinking about it. I don't have as much done for Chris as I would like to, but for our friends, I've got chili that'll give them probably, gosh, maybe 6 meals out of that one thing of chili. If they eat it, at least 4 meals, but maybe 6 meals. So I've got chili, those taquitos, they've got a lot of taquitos, so that'll be a bunch of meals. And then they'll have breakfast casserole, banana bread, and chicken pasta that we made tonight. A sun-dried tomato creamy mozzarella chicken pasta. That's 5 different dishes and a lot of meals, and so I think that'll be good. I don't want to overload them. I probably don't need to do blueberry muffins. I was going to do a chicken pot pie. I had big plans. Y'all know that I am an overachiever. But I think that that's probably a really great place to start. And I think I'll probably give them those pizza pockets that I made for Chris as well, just for an extra little something. And then I'll make Chris more pizza pockets. So maybe we'll do another video when I'm prepping everything for Chris's meals, because I'm sure I will do that before I leave. I'll probably have another one of these days where I do a couple more things for him, or I might look at the freezer and he may be good. We're gonna cook a ham tomorrow. We've got barbecue in the freezer. I've got those buffalo chicken taquitos that I made for him. So I'll have to do a little inventory, but he may be set. So we'll look and see, but I'll check back in with you tomorrow as we package all this stuff up. We'll talk about what all we've got, and then we'll go from there. Here is a look at how the banana bread and muffins turned out. It was so delicious and made my kitchen smell incredible. And I have this recipe and all the recipes used in today's video in the description box below. All right, so we have all of our freezer meals out so that we can see everything that we have done. And I think after pulling out stuff that I've already put up in our freezers, I think Chris is gonna be set. I am gonna make him some of those pizza pockets because I know that he will love them. And I'm gonna give the ones that we made to our friends for them to have. But I wanted to talk through what all we accomplished. So for Chris, first, we have his buffalo chicken taquitos. And if he eats 2 at a time, this will be 3 meals. We also have more taquitos for Chris that I made, I don't know, about a month ago that we are still eating on. So he has all of these as well. So that'll be a lot of lunches and dinners. Also for Chris, we have 2 packages of pulled pork, and there are 2 servings in each of these packages. So this will be 4 meals total for him. And he can do nachos with those, he can do sandwiches with those, he can just eat plain pulled pork. I have some of those ready-made potatoes, instant potatoes. He could do pulled pork and potatoes. So that'll be plenty for him. That'll be good. We also have our banana muffins and some of our little mini banana breads for him to pull out. We did taste test one of these last night and it was delicious. I will put the recipe for the banana bread down below because it is some of the best banana bread I've ever made. It is so good. So he has these to pull from, and the good thing about these is he can pull just one muffin out, pop it in the microwave for 30 seconds on defrost, and it'll be like it's fresh out of the oven. So that's a very quick snack or breakfast for him to have. We have 2 containers of chili for Chris that probably have 2 servings each in them. I have a loaf of bread in the freezer that he can pull out. This has been in the freezer for a little bit, so he'll need to use this sooner than later. He wanted to make grilled cheese, and we have tomato soup in the pantry. We have one of our creamy chicken pastas. This will be 1 serving for him. We have, this is chili that I made about a month ago, and this is for sure 2 servings. So he has plenty of chili to last him for the next 6 weeks. This is spaghetti sauce, so he'll be able to make some noodles and homemade spaghetti. And then I think everything else, oh, this is a loaf of chocolate chip and pecan zucchini bread that he can pull out as well. And then, like I said, I'll do pizza pockets for him, but I wanted to show y'all, this is how I freeze my pizza dough. I just wrap it up after it's proofed and risen, and I divide it, wrap it in plastic wrap, and I just keep these frozen in my freezer, and these thaw pretty quickly in the fridge. So he could take these out and make homemade pizza, but I think the pizza pockets will be more his style because all he has to do is pop them in the oven. So I'll probably be using these to make some pizza pockets for him. So now let's talk about what we've got for our friends. We have all of these chicken and corn taquitos. This will be a bunch of meals for them, so that'll be really good. And then we have this big thing of chili. That'll be a bunch of meals. We have our breakfast casserole, and Chris and I already ate our breakfast casserole from this morning. And I will say I like it better when you bake it immediately. I felt like letting ours sit in the fridge overnight gave a texture that I did not love. So I went ahead and baked our friends, and I'm glad that I did. And I'm glad that I did that experiment because now I know. So this will be ready to go. They can just pop it in the oven. We have 2 pizza pockets for them. We have a creamy chicken pasta, and then we have a loaf of banana bread. Looking back, I wish that I had done muffins for them instead of a loaf because I think it would have been easier and more convenient. I didn't think that one through, but I'm sure that they will still enjoy this loaf of banana bread. So that's all that we accomplished in this video. I know that I might think of a couple other things to have on hand for Chris while I'm gone, but at least this gives him a good place to start, and he won't be eating out all the time or buying freezer meals from the grocery store. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any freezer meals that you love down in the comments below. I would love to get more into ready-made convenience meals in our freezer. We live a crazy hectic life. I know so many of y'all have crazy schedules as well, and this is so nice to be able to have homemade food that is convenient so you're not cooking every single night. I really like the idea of cooking once, making a big old mess in the kitchen, and then having the kitchen clean and just reheating. So let me know if you have any freezer meals you love, and I hope that you were inspired by this video and that you enjoyed it, and we will see you guys on the next one. Bye!